Sting's last match has come and gone. The Icon has retired.
Mm-hmm.
What a spectacle that main event match was. I thought this was a great pay-per-view, Matt. I'll ask you about a few of the matches on the show, but let's start with that Sting match. Man, the Young Bucks cemented themselves among that list of greatest all time with this match. I thought they were fantastic, and Sting coming out on top, getting that moment. One of the more emotional matches I can remember watching. What do you think?
I loved it. I loved every bit of it. And I'm more than anything, I'm happy for Sting. I'm happy that Sting got the chance to tell a story in the correct fashion. He was treated with respect. He was treated with honor, and he was able to go out on his own note, which was fantastic. You know, I loved everything about it, and it's no secret. It's funny, the internet nobodies, the FIs, they love to talk about how I kiss ass of the Young Bucks, but the Young Bucks are dear friends of mine, two of my closest friends in the business. I love them to death. They kick ass. Sting is the person who demanded to work with the Young Bucks. That's who he chose to work with. This wasn't the Young Bucks doing some sort of flex of power. This was Sting demanding to work with the Young Bucks for his closure. That's who he wanted to work with, because he realized how good they are and how much they would bust their ass and how they would tell a good story. And that's what he's all about, telling the story, right? And the story that was told during this whole run, you have Sting, who's undefeated. You don't know if he's going to win and, you know, leave as a tag team champion, retire as a tag team champion, or is he going to lose and do the thing that kind of they always did in the business? You know, when it's time for you to step away, do you put somebody else over, and do the Young Bucks become the tag champs? That could certainly have been a possibility. So it was very unpredictable. I love that fact. I love the fact, you know, it's a polarizing thing. The thing that Darby did, where he jumped out into the sheet of glass and the chairs and whatnot, and he was out for the match. I think that spot was appropriate in many ways. I'm not saying it's something that I would specifically have done, but I understand Darby. I know how he thinks, and he is the true definition of like what the Hardy Boys were supposed to be. He is a total adrenaline junkie that wants to just keep upping and upping and upping and upping and upping and upping the bar and doing something more crazy. He's a true daredevil, almost masochistic in some ways. But, you know, he did this. He's out, and you have Sting defend off both of the Young Bucks, and you put him in a very vulnerable, jeopardized position, which I loved. And then you get to see flashes of the old Sting, him no-selling. He goes through the table, he no-sells, he takes the super kicks, he absorbs it, he no-sells, and comes back and eventually taps out one of the Bucks, taps out Matt Jackson. I loved every single thing about it. It was emotional. They told a good ride. They told a good story. Sting looked as great as Sting could possibly look in that match, in those moments. And Darby did a hell of a job, like carrying his end of the deal too, man. Kudos. Big round of applause to everybody involved. They killed it. And once again, I will applaud Tony Khan for getting Sting there and sending him out the right way.
Absolutely. It was a feel-good story. I was saying it's this weird juxtaposition for the people who hate the Young Bucks and think they're these selfish whatevers versus having the same mentality of, oh, well, the legend should lose in his last match on the way out. I was like, it's like that meme with the guy in the ship deciding which button to pick. What do you pick? I thought they crushed it, man. I thought the Darby spot, while it was quite extreme, one thing I think we do have to remember is that Darby does have a legitimate stunt background. It reported that they extensively worked out the safety elements of this spot. And more importantly, the story, the entire Darby Allin Sting run has been Darby Allin is willing to go to whatever lengths to make sure that Sting, you know, comes out on top. And it is in the ultimate form. Darby did something to try to win things for Sting. And it allowed for us to have that amazing Sting stuff that it was amazing final chapter of his career. The Bucks bumped their asses off for him. We talked about the potential spot of doing it. I'm sorry, I love you. I love that they did. We're not sorry, we hate you. I thought that was so great. They crushed it, man. Did you get a chance to talk to them about the match?
I did. I text back and forth with them after the match, and I really expressed how much I loved it and how hard they busted their ass to do the right thing and to do business. And like, they just did the right thing for business in general. You know, they did the right thing for Sting. It just worked. And at the end of the day, they got themselves over in that match because they were just the ultimate and consummate professionals in that match.
They certainly were. I really enjoyed it. I thought the triple threat match was very good for the AEW championship.
I did too. I was a big fan of that, especially the story between Swerve and Hangman and how that was continuing to evolve and grow.
Yeah, you and I were texting about that, and they did pretty much exactly what I felt they were gonna do. I wish my one critique of it would be because commentary was hitting it, but I wish for the live crowd there was more of an indication that Hangman tapped out just to prevent Swerve from winning. But
Hmm.
that was the story that that commentary did tell for this, and it was good to have JR back too,
Right.
coming off some of his health stuff. But man, for
True.
me, Takeshita Osprey was one of the best matches in AW history. What do you think of this one?
I mean, the physicality was, unparalleled, no doubt. I mean, it was just so physical. It was so crisp. Everything they did looked so great. Everything they did looked so believable. Just two amazing athletes. Will Osprey is on another level in many, many ways. It's just, they had the deal where they came in and they knew what they were getting into, right? It was almost a dojo fight with the Don Callis family or whatever, so the story didn't do as much for me. I loved the match. I thought the match was great. And this is something else we were texting about, different viewpoints. Just having a story like the Sting and Bucks story, or even the story in the three-way where I'm really invested in what Hangman and Swerve are doing, right? And then you throw Joe in that equation, and Joe's great on his own, and he has history, both of them know. So just considering the story wasn't as strong, that made me not feel their match as much as I feel the other two matches. And that's also me personally. There's some wrestling fans that just want die hard technical wrestling, which looks very believable, where the strikes are great, where everything's crisp and everything's smooth. And you're not sure if you're watching a pro wrestling match or you're watching a UFC fight or whatever, because it looks that believable in some ways. And that's great. And I appreciate that. I respect that. Those guys are absolutely amazing. They killed it. But to me, still at my core, what made me love pro wrestling is how a great story would make me feel when I see the payoff to it, right? We talk about feeling in wrestling and being invested in whatever story you're watching, like just being invested in that Young Bucks and Sting match. Just I love that. It blew me away. And it didn't have to be the most crisp and the most physical and the most whatever, but it totally I think past most people's expectations of what it was going to be. And I thought it was great. I just love being involved in a backstory that goes into the wrestling match as well.